Welcome to Module 6 of ITEC 6372, Online Course Design, Delivery, Implementation, and Evaluation. By the end of this module, you should be able to identify the components of project-based learning, which is different than problem-based learning that we've covered previously, define formative assessment and summative assessment, use student feedback and course assessments to evaluate course efficacy, and reflect on the use of online assessment tools to assess student skills for differentiation and evaluation. The first is formative assessment, which is your ongoing assessment. These are your small group activities, discussion boards, informal ways of assessing your students to progress monitor and make sure that they're following along with the course material and comprehending what you're putting out to them. Your summative assessments will be your midterm, your final, your module exams, and the chapter exams that really are the conclusion of longer units of instruction. These summative assessments show what students have learned through the course. Typically, your summative assessments are the end of something, so it's like a cumulative display of all the things that they've learned. In your online course, you should expect to also receive some student feedback. Not only can you use the formative and summative assessments for student feedback, but you can also seek their feedback. For example, in my online course, I'd like to have a midterm survey so that I can ask questions just to see how it's going for students. What things are working well, what things are not working for them, what they like and what they didn't like. And that helps me to make some adjustments for the remainder of the course. With K-12 students, you may choose to do and perform some of these informal surveys to receive student feedback more often. For example, you might do these quarterly or even monthly or more often than that. Just make sure that you're providing quality systems for the student feedback to be gathered. You want to make sure that students understand why they're giving you feedback, that the whole purpose is to help to improve the course and make it better, as well as it may also give them an idea of what to expect from you. So you may be providing feedback as well based on the answers that they give. You also notice course assessment or evaluation typically that's found at the end of a course in more formal settings. Again, in the K-12 setting, you may be doing this yourself. Assessment should be ongoing so that you're constantly looking at the content that you're putting out versus student achievement or student comprehension of it. This will be done with your formative assessments. Most of the time, by the time you've reached your summative assessment, you should have been performing ongoing assessments so you can ensure that your students are set up to perform successfully on the summative assessments. Also, through teacher feedback, which is a great way to provide students with information on areas that they should focus on, or maybe a way to pull in small groups for online education based on things that you're seeing, so that you're constantly giving your students feedback so that they can make improvements. Most of the time, in an online education setting, if it's the student's voice to be in that environment, then you have sort of a self-driven motivation and they're looking for your feedback. This also comes in handy on exams. And for that, formative and summative assessments where you can provide them with information on how to learn more about a topic or even add additional supports. You can also set teacher feedbacks in some forms to be automated, such as on quizzes, such as in Google Classroom, where if a student chooses a wrong answer, you can automate it to give them feedback about where they can find the correct answer or why their answer was incorrect. Packaging your assignments and assessments online is very important because you want your students to have all the information located in one place. Think back about how you're packaging your syllabus and your online course calendar. It's kind of a one-stop shopping approach. All that information needs to be together because students don't need to be hopping from place to place to find that information. When you package an assignment or an assessment, you want to make sure that it includes the activity title, not just Project 1, Project 2, but also a short description of what the project is, the instructions and the requirements for that project. Additionally, you want to include the grading criteria, how you're going to grade that so students will know what to expect. Also a due date, and also information about where they can submit their assignment, including the location for that submission, and also when and where they can plan on receiving feedback from you. If it's graded using a rubric, that's where they'll get their feedback, or will they be provided feedback in person? Also for online assignments and assessments, especially if it's a larger one like a project, I like to provide a video tutorial that walks through what I expect. It helps students when they can hear a voice explaining it rather than just reading instructions or the grading criteria. So provide them with a screencast of their assignment or assessment so that they can hear you explain it to them. That also provides two ways that students are able to get the instructions or directions, thinking back to the module on accessibility. You want to make sure that you're providing those instructions in multiple formats. For your discussion this week, we have a quote by author Susan Mann about online assessment tools. We'll find several assessments of online assessment tools in our texts this week. Remember, for the discussion prompts, you want to make sure that your students understand that this takes the place of an online discussion. You may provide prompts that focus on a topic, such as in Module 5, we focused on reading and what the author had to say, referring to course content. These are just some examples of sentence frames that you can add to your collection for students to use when replying to each other as a part of the discussion. For example, after listening to or reading what you said, I think, or I'd like to add, or let's dig deeper into the idea of, or in a case where you might be disagreeing with a peer's comment, you might say, valid point, but in my opinion, or where did you find that? Remember, you're required as a part of the discussion activities in this course to respond to at least 2 of your other classmates. I also encourage you to reply back to your students who reply to help create a full threaded discussion. Another thing I'd like to remind you about is that it's okay to disagree in an online discussion. You just want to make sure that you maintain civility in the way that you conduct it. Just a reminder for your discussions, make sure that you always cite your sources at the end of the posts. Have a great week.